Have you ever stopped to consider that some of the most bizarre, unexplainable moments in history might actually be messages? Messages we weren't ready for. Today, I want to open that door. I want to lead you into a story that refuses to fit neatly into our comfort zones. A story not just about government secrets or weather balloons, but about something deeper. About how humanity confronts the unknown sometimes with guns. Picture this. It's late February, 1942. The shadows of war stretch across the globe. America is reeling from Pearl Harbor. Fear is thick in the air. And then, just after midnight on the night of the 24th of February, something appears over Los Angeles. Something that shouldn't be there. What happened next wasn't just a strange incident, it was a mirror held up to our collective psyche, a crisis of fear, perception, authority, and the question, what do we do when we are outmatched? So let's rewind. Before the boom of sirens and the staccato chatter of anti-aircraft guns, there were shifting tectonics in the American mind. WWI2 wasn't just a physical battle, it was war in the realm of information. Suspicion, rumor, paranoiathese were weapons as potent as any shell. America had nationalized fear. They'd trained us to expect enemy bombers on our shores. Any anomaly in the sky, any flicker of radar or even of imagination was enough to trigger hysteria. Now, imagine yourself in that moment. You're a resident of LA, a city that still gleams with promise. You've been told the enemy is at our gates, and then a plane you can't identify. Lights you don't recognize. A feeling you can't shake, your heart slams. And soon that feeling spreads, through radios, over the streets, up to the highest echelons of military command. That unknown becomes a target. Lock, load, fire. At 3:20 a.m., Lieutenant Colonel Charles W. Porterfield, commanding the Western Defense Command, declares an air raid alert. All civilian lighting is ordered blacked out. The sky above Los Angeles fills with searchlights slicing through darkness. People peer from windows like frightened animals. And then, the guns open fire. Thousands of rounds of anti-aircraft ammunition tear into the night. The light show of shrapnel and tracer rounds draws eerie patterns against the clouds. But here's the twist. There was no plane, no squadron, no physical object in the sky. There were no fatalities from bombs, just one civilian dead from a heart attack, shock, or possibly a falling shrapnel piece. And countless witnesses, thousands of rounds fired, all directed at fear. Officially, the military would later blame weather balloons or war nerves. A convenient scapegoat, a tidy explanation. But that surface explanation begs a deeper question. Why were we primed to shoot first and ask questions later? Why was a mysterious light enough to trigger a firefight? There's a psychological framework that helps us understand. It's called confirmation bias. It means we tend to interpret ambiguous information in ways that confirm our existing beliefs. In 1942, the belief was simple. The enemy is relentless, everywhere, always. So when a balloon or a cloud looked odd, minds snapped into threat mode. The citywide panic wasn't irrational, it was entirely predictable. Now, if this were a one-off incident, fine, anomaly. But this wasn't the only time we've lashed out at the shadows above. Consider the ghost rockets over Scandinavia in 1946, or the Phoenix Lights in 1997, or even modern drone swarms you can't identify hovering at night. When our defenses are biologically replaying recessive instincts, fight or flight, we treat the sky like open mic night for threats. The real question isn't whether UFOs are out there, it's what do we do when we don't know? But the Battle of Los Angeles teaches us something else. It teaches about authority. That night, thousands were ordered to shoot. Few questioned. Orders came top down, yet no one acknowledged responsibility afterward. Citizens were told, "Go back to sleep. Everything's fine." They were given an answer, not a truth, because they didn't deserve something so messy. And that runs deeper than this one incident. There's a philosophical undercurrent here. What happens to truth when trust is absent? Governments regularly tame complexity with headlines and statements. Weather balloon. Missed. Nothing to see here. But what do they expect from us? Acceptance? Submission? Think back to Socrates. Truth, he argued, comes from questioning, from probing, from dissent. If institutions demand silence, if they enforce blind compliance, what kind of culture is that? What kind of citizen arises in that environment? Yet many of us are comfortable with that. We want clarity. We want certainty. We're willing to accept the balloon if it means we can sleep. We'll swallow narratives that close the door to the bigger, murkier, more disturbing questions.
Let's circle back to that night. The guns finally fell silent around daybreak. The searchlights dimmed. The city emerged from darkness to confusion. You could smell smoke everywhere, gunpowder and nerves. And there's something haunting about that stillness. A silence that follows when we unleash our worst instincts on nothingness. It's like a war zone with no war, a crime scene with no victim. Some historians believe the real target was psychological. They suggest the military wanted to send a signal. We see threat severity. Threatened, we will respond. We will defend. That message is powerful and understandable given the context of a nation at war. But what does that cost us? We lose nuance. We lose patience. We lose our humility in the face of mystery. And maybe most dangerously, we lose ourselves. It's easy to dismiss the Battle of LA as a wartime blunder, but its real legacy lies in how it speaks to our readiness to fight or manufacture enemies. It's a cautionary tale of how perception becomes projection, and how polarization is fueled in the name of security. Let me tell you a true parallel. In 1968, Major Donald Kehoe, former Marine and director of NICAP, a UFO research group, testified before Congress. He asked whether the government was covering up sightings, whether there were unidentified craft in the sky. Congress's reply? Silence. No hearings, no dive into truth, just stonewalling. Another night in which fear outgunned intellect. A quiet declaration. Truth isn't a priority. When the sky is unknown, what do? We fill the void with stories, assumptions, narratives. We search for scapegoats, we arm ourselves, we politicize perception, even if it's just a balloon. Here's what we need to hear. Mystery is not weakness, and admitting ignorance is not failure. To stand beneath a strange light and say, I don't know, requires courage. To pause and ask, can you tell me more? Demands more bravery. It means embracing discomfort, the fragile, chaotic space where truth often lives. There's a line from T.S. Eliot. Between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act, falls the shadow. That shadow is our doubt, our fear. It dictates our responses more than we think. That February night in 1942, we didn't just shoot at the sky, we shot into our own shadow. And we invited destruction, but it doesn't have to be that way now. We live in an age flooded with information. AI, social media, news feeds, screaming 24/7s. Our reflex is still the same. Fear, anger, immediate response. Look at how we treat borders, identity, difference. Any anomaly migrant boat, a tweet, a scientific claim becomes a threat. We strike, we label, we move on. What if we didn't? What if we treated uncertainty with curiosity and compassion instead of hostility? What if we paused and asked, who's telling us what? Why? What if we accepted that sometimes we really don't know? The Battle of Los Angeles didn't start with a UFO. It started with fear. It ended with guns. And it left a warning. That shadow is always there. And until we confront it, it will keep dragging us into phantom wars. So here's your call to action. Next time you're hit with ambiguity, be it in politics, science, culture, don't reach for your guns. Reach for your questions. Don't settle for coincidence or forced clarity. Demand context. Ask, what don't we know? What do we want to ignore? And then go deeper. Read a book, watch a film. Listen to perspectives you don't expect. Challenge your beliefs not to tear them down, but to test them, explore, provoke yourself. Become the kind of citizen Socrates imagined. Aware, humble, brave, curious. Because the alternative is always easier and always more destructive. So if this story unsettled you, good. That's the point. It should unsettle you. Then let it move you. Let it motivate you to ask harder questions. Let it guide you into conversations that are deeper, richer, more humane. If you want to explore more stories like this, stories that confront what we think we know, hit subscribe. I dive deep. I go dark. I go unexpected. I go true. And I want you with me. Like, subscribe, reflect, engage, because the world doesn't need more answers. It needs more courageous questions.